So hello, everyone. My name is Jan Lehman. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the owner of CTC Productivity. And we have some new faces on the call. We've got some regulars on the call, which is super fun. So a little backstory. We have been doing these webinars since the pandemic hit. What we realized is companies really were not taking full advantage of the Microsoft 365 platform to solve a lot of their issues, in particular going into the hybrid work environment. So we thought this was a great idea. And if you have any interest to see past recordings or sign up for our newsletters or any of those things, Nancy's going to enter into chat a bunch of links so you can see the past recordings. You can sign up for our YouTube channel as well. She'll include that one. But we've been doing this for a very long time. What we do is we help companies fully leverage the Microsoft suite of tools. And we do that really with a business lens, looking at what are the business issues and how do you solve it. Our roadmap and how we do it is we help companies, we really assess the current technical situation, what their issues are. We help migrate, get the data over their emails, maybe off of Google onto 365. And then we help optimize the use of the technology. And so I have two of our team members with us today that are both focused on the optimized side of Microsoft 365. So Nancy is really what we call our business application expert and trainer. So she will often work with companies and help them understand, here's the various apps, here's what they do, here's how companies typically use them, and help those companies set up what we call rules of engagement on how they're going to actually use the various apps across the entire company. Arnie is our business and process improvement guru with a strong knowledge in Microsoft 365 and in particular SharePoint. And so he's often coming in and looking at workflows across the organization and how to streamline them. So I am very, very blessed. I have an amazing team. The way we structure our webinars is we're going to hit it hard with some content and open it up for Q&A. But if you already have burning questions, you're welcome to enter those into the chat already or enter them along the way. And today the topic, we always look at this, again, I mentioned kind of from a business lens. And so one of the things we're seeing with a lot of the clients that we're working with is they're having a ton of problems around projects and reporting and everything in that space. So Arnie's going to do a series of topics this month and the next couple of months, all in this particular area. The one today is how to streamline reporting processes using SharePoint. So as productivity consultants, what we do is we look for like time-consuming repetitive tasks, things you do over and over again, and how do we automate and streamline that and make it significantly better? So this is a perfect example of that. And then next month, we're actually going to be focused more on companies that have multiple projects. Already, go ahead and flip the slide. Thank you. How to manage multiple projects and multiple deadlines. So again, often we have clients that are overwhelmed. They can't keep track of all the various projects. They're maybe trying to do it in Excel or some other tool. And so Arnie's going to talk about how you can actually manage that efficiently in the SharePoint environment. So that's plan. Again, and the link is a place where you could register for the December webinar if you're interested. And if you can't make it, we have the recordings out on the website a couple days later. So I'm going to do a little quick intro and then I'll hand it over to Arnie. But again, we really come at this looking at how we can solve business issues within our clients' environments using 365. And these are typically the issues we're hearing our clients complain about that are, there's great solutions within 365. So organization of information, Teams is excellent with that, using OneNote Planner, just the whole Teams environment, improving communication, collaboration, death by meetings is usually what we're hearing is a problem. And if you understand how to use 365, you can reduce your number of meetings, which is awesome. Accountability has continued to be an issue, in particular in the hybrid world where managers can't see their employees and they need better ways of tracking tasks. And prioritization is kind of a reoccurring theme we keep hearing. People are confused as to what's the highest priority, how do I go about prioritizing my work in the day? And again, 365 has some great tools there. Going into where we stand now, there's lots of different surveys out there, but most companies are pretty much hybrid. There's a few that are 100% in the office, and there are a few that are definitely fully remote. So again, leveraging cloud-based solutions like 365 is a no-brainer if you're in the hybrid or remote world. And I'm going to just share, we're starting to get some testimonials from our clients on what it is they like about 365 and why should you even consider it. So we worked with one of our clients, and these are some of her comments. So her comment was basically 365 works when it's done right. So a lot of our clients we're seeing are really struggling with how to set it up properly. People are confused. They're overwhelmed by all the notifications. And she's spot on that if you know how to set it up properly, it's an amazing tool. Sometimes applications promise a lot and don't actually work, but she's a huge believer at 365 work. So if you, depending on where you are in the spectrum, if you're just hearing about 365 and you're curious, again, this is a client perspective. It's worth your time to explore it. And in particular, she likes the marriage between desktops and phones. And in particular, because again, the hybrid world and the fact that we're always on their phones, you can access really anything in the 365 environment on your phone, which is perfect. And again, drives productivity no matter where you are. And I think there's one last one, and yeah, critical in the hybrid model for sure. So anyway, if you need a little understanding or push as to why would I even explore this environment, that's a client perspective for you. Arnie, you are up.
All righty. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about streamlining reporting processes with SharePoint. And this is a common process I see across lots of companies, lots of clients, different organizations. And what I'm talking about when I talk about reporting processes, it's more like project reporting or status reporting. So I'll see a lot of managers who, especially in a remote environment, they want their employees to keep them updated often on Friday afternoons, and they just want to know, what have you accomplished this week? What roadblocks have you run into? Where are you going to be next week? What's your focus next week? That sort of a thing. But also it can be used just as easily with reporting on project status. So we're going to find out how to quickly streamline status reporting using SharePoint lists. I've used SharePoint for, I think, almost 20 years. And when I first learned about the list functionality, I use it for everything. It's just a tremendous tool. And I know that there's a saying, if you have a hammer, everything is a nail. This is the closest to debunking that saying, because there are very few processes I have ever found that cannot be improved with SharePoint lists. It's just a tremendous tool. And SharePoint or Teams is kind of built on SharePoint. So everybody knows, well, we store our documents in SharePoint. True, but a lot of the Teams functionality is SharePoint behind the scenes. But Microsoft figured out, oh, we got this awesome SharePoint technology. Let's customize it and roll it out in Teams format, and it'll be more user-friendly. So SharePoint lists is a good thing. Also, if you watch for recurring reporting emails, and I might say with SharePoint lists, I watch for any recurring emails. If there's an email that has the same content and it comes out on a regular basis, that just screams, move it to SharePoint lists.
Yeah, one of our adages, we always say, you always want to spot those time-consuming repetitive tasks. And first step is always automation. Like if you can streamline and automate it, you do. If you can't, and you're in a leadership position, those are the perfect ones to delegate. So you have the time to train somebody. And when you train somebody to do a time-consuming repetitive task, you can take it off your plate and it goes on theirs and you'll have a lot of time back. So.
Yeah, and Microsoft just hit it out of the park 20 years ago when they created the list functionality. Unfortunately, for most people, they did a really poor job publicizing what to do with it. So recently they've started bringing it to the forefront. They even split it out into the Lists app, which is a whole nother story. But the List app just takes the list functionality out of SharePoint. It's still SharePoint, but it just makes it one tap away instead of two on your phone.
Arnie, I didn't realize lists had been around for 20 years. I thought it was newer. That's interesting.
No, SharePoint lists came out at the same time as document libraries, and people needed a place to store their documents. So they were so focused on document libraries that they overlooked the list functionality. But the list is what got my attention almost 20 years ago. So,
cool.
So who benefits from Streamline status reporting? Managers of work groups, which is what I said earlier, but especially with remote workers, they need to know, well, what can I do for you? What roadblocks can I remove for you? What have we moved forward on our projects? That sort of thing. Executives and organizations of all sizes. Back in my corporate days, one of the achievements that I was so proud of was we had a very time-consuming weekly reporting process where individual contributors and superintendents in 97 power plants would send their updates to their plant managers, who would then compile them into a report to the regional VPs and the regional VPs. And this was all done on weekends, mind you. When they would rather be at the lake or at church or playing golf, they were at their computers doing reports. And then the regional VPs would send it to the executive VP, who would then on Monday morning take his compiled report that he spent 4 hours on Sunday afternoon to the COO and tell him what went on in the power plant world the previous week. So using a SharePoint list, we streamlined that to where there was no longer any weekend work. The expectation was everyone enters it into a SharePoint list by Friday, end of business. All of the VPs and executives could then play golf on the weekends, and in the morning, the report was ready. Just hit one button and printed it out and went to see the COO. So it doesn't matter the size of your organization, SharePoint lists will streamline your reporting. Small to mid-sized business owners, who is mostly who Jan, Nancy, and I work with now. Seems like we're often in the 50 to 500 employee range, but it's such a fast improvement for those size organizations. And in the larger organizations, what are they but a group of smaller organizations? Every power plant in my corporate world had between 10 and 500 employees. So there, we just had a bunch of smaller organizations, a larger one. It benefits employees doing the reporting. Now I got to say, entering the report and sending it to your manager using a list doesn't save you much time or effort. It takes the same as sending an email, but it saves the managers and executives so much time on the back end. But the benefit to the employees is that at the end of the year, perhaps when it's time for a year-end performance evaluation, you could an employee can quickly print out and refresh his or her memory on just what did I do this year, so that I can speak to it. Also, if they're putting in for a new position or whatever, there are all the achievements in on a single web page. So what is a problem with how most companies do it right now? Well, you have a manager or a boss of some sort who has direct reports. And using my previous example, sometime on Friday, one direct report would send a manager by email. And then an hour, 2 hours later, another direct report would send one. 20 minutes later, another one would send an email, and it just keeps going until everyone has sent their report to the manager. Well, the poor manager, the problem for that person is the emails are then randomly scattered throughout the manager's inbox. You know, there might be one there, there's one there, there's another one, and the manager has to scroll through dozens or perhaps even hundreds of emails to get those reports. So it's a bother. And the email reports are as numerous as the number of reporting employees. There are many containers for those reports, in other words. And the manager must open each email individually. You got to find it, you got to double click on it, you've got to read it, and then move on to the next one as soon as you can find it in your inbox. And it's not very efficient. And the reports are not easily reviewed later. When the manager goes to do year-end performance reviews, or when his or her boss wants to know, well, what's going on in your department, they're randomly scattered through an inbox. So if you can't tell, I do not like email. Email is of the devil, as they say in Southern. I just wish email would go away.
Hey, Arnie, I'll make a comment about that just to get the broader picture for people. So if, in case you're not aware of really what's ultimately going to be happening with the way you use our technology, is all of the internal communication and collaboration that's happening in email today is really going to be leaving email and going into new and improved tools within the 365 environment. So this is like a perfect example of something like that, where something used to happen in email. Now let's move it into a more appropriate tool. So Arnie, your wish is coming. Email is going to be around for a long time for external communication, but it's going to be diminished, which is good.
And this is kind of a side note, has nothing to do with SharePoint, but you know, a lot of pushback on going to Teams rather than email for communications is that, well, now we've got to do Teams and email, and that's true, but it's still more efficient. But gradually, the email from external partners, vendors, customers, whoever, that's going to slowly go away too and be replaced by Teams from external people. So like it or not, Teams is the way of the future.
Yeah.
So there's many more, but the last one I listed is the last problem is the manager then often has to repackage your reports to send up the command chain. And that was true on steroids in my former corporate job. So what's the solution? The solution, in my opinion, is a SharePoint list that is the receiver of all the weekly reports or project reports or whatever. They land in this SharePoint list, and then the manager goes and pulls that single report when he or she is ready to look at those reports. Obviously can look at them all along while they're coming in, but you can wait till they all come in, and there you go. It's a neatly packaged report. So the difference for the reporting employees is rather than typing their report into an email form, when you type a new email, you're essentially typing your information into a web form. But in that case, it only has a subject and a body, and we're on to and CC and all that. But we're just changing their focus or their work into a web form, which can be however you want it to be. And what I'm showing right here, at least what's in the screenshot, they put a title on their report, what kind of information type, FYI, exception, milestone. They can choose their department. And if you want to get real fancy, that can be automatically done through Microsoft. Report body, and if I showed the rest of the page, there's an urgent box if it's something that just needs to float to the top. If it's a project report, you can choose red, yellow, or green so that there's a cool indicator on the manager's dashboard and such. And here's the good thing now with the, unlike the old days with on-premise SharePoint, Teams came about the time SharePoint Online came out. So now we can roll the SharePoint form into Teams, because Jan, Nancy, and I are huge advocates for making your employees' lives easier and making it to where Teams serves as a business operating system, more or less, to where your employees never have to leave Teams. It should be rare that they leave Teams. And in this case, they just click the Enter Report tab, and there is the SharePoint form. Doesn't matter where the form exists, it shows up in Teams. So once the employees enter their reports, back to my corporate example, they do it Friday end of business, or by noon actually. So by end of business, then the executives, plant managers, all those folks, they could see the reports neatly bundled into these pre-built views. And this particular view, I made it so that the urgent topic was at the top and all the rest followed thereafter in reverse chronological order. But off the screen, there is an urgent box, and on the form as well, to where if the employee said, hey, this stiltgrass invasion is indefinitely delaying the restoration project, that's kind of a big deal. So put it right at the top in bold, so any manager or executive seeing this report knows this is big stuff right here. I got to pay attention to it. And all the other things I'll just read later on. So again, one of the massive benefits of SharePoint lists is that, unlike Excel, you can spoon feed awesome views, tailored views to employees and managers in the way that makes the most sense to them, hides the non-pertinent information that may be in the list, and elevates those things that are most important. So in this case, I've got a view where a manager could then click on the view and see all of the reports by employee. In this case, I only added one sample report for each of these employees, but imagine at the end of the year, there would be 45, 50, 52 reports per employee. So they're all neatly packaged by employee, again, in a pre-built view. So likewise, that very same information in that same list, I subdivided it or grouped it by department in this case. So we've got 2 reports for the outbuildings department, 1 for residential and 2 for the wildlife habitat department. And I can arrange the order of the columns in the way that makes the most sense, where in this case, I wanted FYIs and exceptions to be right there. Again, color coded. And here is the same information, the same reports, but they're grouped by project rather than by employee or chronological order and such. So I can quickly see by project how they're going. And the project status report, you can see I added a red, yellow, green, which managers and executives like to see that. You can quickly scan it and say, oh my gosh, the red one, that's bad. I need to go look at it, intervene if needed, but real quickly. So imagine, oh, go ahead, Jan.
Oh, yeah, I just want to comment, Arnie. One of the comments we're hearing from a lot of people, a lot of companies, is we're trying to use Planner for managing multiple projects. And Planner is an awesome tool, but it is a very simple tool. And so if you've sort of outgrown Planner, SharePoint is the next stage for you. And exactly like Arnie's explaining. So a lot of companies have hundreds of projects they're managing, and Planner is not going to be the best tool for that. So
yeah, Planner is an awesome hit the ground running tool, but if you want to customize it and really make it slick, SharePoint lists are a great option. Mm-hmm. So then here's a view of the same information, the same list, but it's called My Reports. And in SharePoint, you can filter you can filter for me, which me equals whoever's logged into the computer. So if I'm logged in and I go click on My Reports, SharePoint says, oh, well, Arnie is logged into the computer. Let's show everything that was created by his user ID. So there it is, reverse chronological order, highly customizable. And finally, because we want employees to never leave Teams, if at all possible, even though this is in SharePoint and can be easily navigated and managed in SharePoint, we want people staying in Teams. So right here, I can put the whatever views I want in the right channels and put it right in front of employees when they need it. So in this case, I'm in the EOS channel, which if you're not familiar with EOS, this is like the management channel for this fictional farm. And if you're managing this fictional farm, of course, you want to see the latest weekly reports. So they say, oh, I'm going to go to the management channel, click on weekly report. There it is. I didn't have to go find it. So that's all I have to say about that. And Jan's going to say a few words and then please ask questions.
yeah, so let's just wrap up and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So feel free to start entering any questions in the chat or be ready to unmute yourself. So awesome job as always, Arnie. So we just do a little caveat. A lot of people that stumble upon our webinar series just think that all we do is Microsoft 365. So just have a couple slides to kind of better explain what we do. So we're really productivity consultants and we look at it from a productivity lens, and there might be other levers we're going to pull other than 365. Arnie, if you could do the next slide, that'd be fabulous. So sometimes it can be
unresponsive.
Oh, no problem. So sometimes it definitely can be process improvement and looking at how do we streamline workflow. And if 365 can really help, awesome, we're going to bring that in the mix, but we don't always come at it just from a tech angle. We also do a lot of one-on-one coaching with leaders, different people in the company. Go ahead and, is it slow?
Yeah, I'm having troubles getting it to.
Okay, no worries.
Here we
So
go.
we do a lot of coaching, the different levels of the organization. Nancy and I do a lot of public speaking and training on every topic you could possibly think of related to productivity. I feel like one of our hot topics, a couple this year, have been how to run an effective meeting. So that entails like the soft skill side, as well as how, like what tools make sense. Project management for the everyday leader is another big one, because most of us are managing a lot of moving pieces and parts. And then we did a lot certainly around the technical aspect of Outlook, OneNote, Excel, all those different things. And so the next webinar, apparently our webinar link is broken, or it's pointing to today's webinar. So if you're interested in this webinar in December, how to manage multiple projects and deadlines, I would recommend sign up for our newsletter, and then you'll get a notification when the next webinar is coming out. Either that, or put December 13th on your calendar and just go out to our website, the week before or whatever, and the link will be out there along with all the past recordings. So whatever works best for you. And if you can't attend, you can always go see the recording later. And now we're open for Q&A. So any questions, feel free to unmute or to enter into chat. But any questions at all on this particular functionality or anything around 365, we're open to any questions.
So when you were back on those lists where you had the red, yellow, and green, one of the things that people can do also is just sort by that column, right?
Right, all of those views, any list view and document library view in SharePoint, when it's in those rows and columns format, you can do a lot of what you can do with Excel right in your browser window. So you can sort, filter, group, and more. Thanks.
It's a perfect example of, I feel like for many, many years, we've been creating data, and the trend now is how do we take advantage of data, right? This is a perfect example of how do we put it in one place and be able to leverage it for reporting after the fact. And so to be able to manipulate the data and have different views is amazing. So any questions at all? You guys are all eating. So, okay, give it another minute. If there's no questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the webinar, but we're happy to hang on if anybody has questions, anything to do with Microsoft 365 or anything related to productivity consulting, not just the technical aspect. So.
Well, Jan, while they're thinking of a question, you brought a good point in that we have created so much data in the last 10 years, especially. SharePoint Teams, probably the biggest advantage of those is gathering, aggregating, consolidating, and making it simple to mine and to review. Yeah.
Charlie, were you going to ask a question? I saw you unmuted. No pressure, but
yeah, no, I dumb question or dumb comment, really. I thought so I run 365 on my own personal laptop. I do consulting. And until now, I didn't know I didn't even have SharePoint. You have to pay for it. I just went to get it and it said I had to pay for it.
You might be on a personal, 365 account. If you're on a business, if you're on any of the business licenses, you definitely have it. It's included. And that's usually what we see on the business side is people are paying for the software and don't realize they have it. But I'm going to guess, don't you think Nancy Narney, he's got a personal email account?
Yeah, no, I know I have personal, and then, but I think what's happening is when I'm logging in with the individuals or the companies that I'm consulting with, they have the more robust, and I can use it in that context, but I can't. So I thought SharePoint was part of it, but I guess it isn't. So anyways,
not on the free, not on the personal plans. So there's a free Microsoft, and then there's two personal plans, a personal, which is just for you and a family, which you can have 6 people.
Yep.
Those do not have SharePoint. They do have a OneDrive. So you have a personal cloud storage space with OneDrive, but it does not come with SharePoint, right? You do have to have a business plan.
Got it. Okay. Well, that I discovered something new today.
Awesome. That's great. Any other questions? All right, let's bring
Anybody-
it to a close. Oh, go ahead.
Is anybody on the call using the SharePoint list that they want to share their experience? Because that's always fun to hear firsthand experience.
That's a great one.
Guess not.
I think everybody's eating. So, all right, awesome. Well, thanks for being here, everyone. We'll see you next month for the next topic, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.